What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a top 10 80s hits that didn't break the U.S. top 40, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below or the Patreon link on the end screen. We could not do it without them. Richard has been with the channel for a long time, been a supporter for a long time, which we greatly appreciate. Always brings fantastic lists and a lot of musical knowledge, right? It takes a lot of musical knowledge to bring this, and some fantastic artists in this one. So I am looking forward to getting into it. There's not going to be any background. There's no background because it's 10 different artists, obviously. If you haven't been with us before, the music won't be in the video, but it will be at a Vimeo link below. So click on that and follow along with us. Let's kick it off with number 10. We got Adventures, Broken Land off the Sea of Love album in 1998, their second studio album. They were a Northern Irish rock pop band formed in Belfast in 1984 and had a number of hits during the 80s and early 90s. They were actively recording and touring from 84 up until 93, but despite being managed by the highly influential Simon Fuller, they never achieved a significant commercial breakthrough. Broken Land, this song was released in 1988 as the lead single from the album, is their biggest hit in the UK and went to number 20, spending 10 weeks on the charts. That was good. It's also a big hit in Ireland where it reached the top 10. Written by guitarist Pat Gribben. It was the most played song on BBC Radio 1 in 1988. Wow, high praise. So it went to 95 in the US, so it barely got into the top 100. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Richard. Broken Land, really well written song. It's about the troubles in Northern Ireland and Ireland, right, in the 70s and 80s, and I'm not going to go into all of that because I cannot speak authoritatively to it. That is for the people of those lands, but really well done. It's catchy, strong lyrics. Can't quite figure out what that instrument in there is, but really pleasant. And I like it because it doesn't because of the subject matter, it needs to have this pleasant melody like it does. It doesn't need to kick up into stuff because it takes away from kind of the vocal performance. So I thought that was really good from a group that I honestly never heard of. The next up is an artist I have heard of for sure. Paul Young, Wherever I Lay My Heart from the No Parlays album in 1983. Originally written by Marvin Gaye, Barrett Strong, and the great Norman Whitfield. What a songwriting crew. It's originally performed by Marvin Gaye all the way back in 1962. Paul topped the charts in 1983 in the UK with his song Broke Him Out as a Star. Only went to 70 in the US, but the US version is famous because of a fretless bass part played by the great Pino Palladino. When Paul was recording this album, the record company sent him all kinds of songs. He thought they were too complex, but he remembered a song he heard when he was 14 years old as a B-side. He said he just wanted how did he put it? I just wanted a simple three-chord trick with the melody. So he found this song, this B-side from Marvin Gaye, and he decided to lay it down. He slowed it down a little bit and gave the vocal a little more melancholy. Of course, a year later, I'm pretty sure it was 84. I didn't look it up, but I can remember that. Every Time You Go Away became just an absolute worldwide smash, and a smash here in the U.S. Wherever I Lay My Hat. I don't know the original, but I know what originals like this song sound like, if that makes sense, right? All the songs of this era sound the same as far as the way they were arranged, especially by that songwriting crew. Not in a bad way, but it would have been much faster. It would have been much more rich brass and instrumentation in there. So Paul really made this song his own. I think he has a great voice. I always thought that. I saw this was his debut album and his first of 3 consecutive #1 albums in the UK. Every Time You Go Away was 1985. I did have to go look real quick because it would have bugged me if I had told you incorrectly, but Paul just never really hit it big here in the U.S. Besides that, it really just didn't have much. I see he's got 10 studio albums and kind of kept on making music, but for some reason it just never stuck here in the U.S. It should have, but when he's telling this girl, it's typical 60s writing. It's either the girl wronged him or he wronged the girl. He wronged the girl here saying, look, it's not that I don't care about you, but I got to go do what I got to do. And then wherever I lay my hat, that's my home. So it's not that I don't want you, but I'm going to go do and go be with whoever I want to be. But a really nice song. Next up, we have Mental as Anything, Live It Up from the Fundamental album in 1985. Mental as Anything are an Australian new wave and pop band, rock band that formed in Sydney in 1976. They also hit the Australian charts with covers of songs by Roy Orbison, Elvis Presley, and Chuck Berry. That's a good trifecta to cover. In 2009, they were inducted in the Australian Recording Industry Association Hall of Fame. This song peaked at number 3 in the UK, number 4 in Norway, number 6 in Germany, after it was featured in the 1986 Australian film Crocodile Dundee, which was a huge hit worldwide in the US. It was written by Mental as Anything keyboardist and singer Greedy Smith. He did not initially think the song would be a hit when he wrote it, but became more confident as the song was completed. He explained, quote, "You know when I felt that it was going to be a hit? When we finished mixing it. It took about half an hour to write it in my head, but then 2 years to get it right. We had no idea of how big it would be." Live It Up, just one of those songs that the more it goes on, the more you like it, the more catchy it becomes. You get through 3 verses and then they get, they sprinkle the chorus in there and then they go back to verses 1 and 3. And so just kind of, the longer it goes on, the more it sticks in your head. Beautiful melody. I just like this kind of song, right? I just like this kind of arrangement. I like this kind of genre. So for me, even though I never heard it, it kind of felt like an old friend. Speaking of old friends, we got The Jam up next with Start from the Sound Effect album in 1980. Now, I have done Trey and I did a reaction to this album, and 3 albums in a row there for The Jam. One of my greatest discoveries in 5.5 years on this channel was The Jam. Love them. But that said, I've never went back and revisited the album, so I don't remember this song. It's their 11th UK single, their second #1 following Going Underground / Dreams of Children. Written by Paul Weller, of course, it was the lead single. It's based on both the main guitar riff and bass riff of the Beatles' 1966 song, Taxman, from, of course, Revolver, which I place at #1 on the greatest albums of all time. But you didn't ask me, but I just let you know. That song, of course, written by George Harrison. Bassist Bruce Foxton commented on the similarity. "We were listening a lot to the Beatles' Revolver album. It wasn't intentional, but Taxman subconsciously went in, and when we came up with the idea for Start, that's what went in. It isn't exactly the same, thankfully. Otherwise, I'm sure Paul McCartney would have thought about suing us." All right, so listen to it with that kind of ear, right? Do we hear in Taxman? Obviously, Bruce Foxton's bass work on there is fantastic. A really good song. It sounds so, there's so many like elements of Taxman in it. But I got to tell you, I don't know. I mean, it was obvious from the jump, but it's because I was looking for it, right? I knew it was there. So I don't know if you hadn't told me it was there, if I would have noticed it. I want to think that I would have, but I may not have. But well done, and just a reminder of why the Jam were so great. I've done a little bit of Weller individual stuff, just in song reactions. Just a fantastic artist, and the Jam were great. All right, we're up to number 6 on the top 10 80s hits that didn't break the U.S. top 40. Richard brings in at number 6, Level 42, Running in the Family, from the album of the same name in 1987. They're an English jazz funk band formed on the Isle of Wight in 1979. They had a number of UK and worldwide hits during the 80s and 90s. After much success as a live and studio band in the 80s, their commercial profile diminished during the early 90s following a series of personnel changes and musical shifts. They disbanded in 94, reformed in 2001. This song itself went to 6 in the UK, 83 in the US. It's part of a series of single successes by the group and brought them fame in countries where they were previously little known, such as the US, although I wouldn't say 83 is really bringing you success. Germany and Norway. They had a huge hit in the US with a song called Something About You. I remember that. I don't remember anything else from them. Running in the Family, nice arrangement there, nicely done. Really well-written song. The dad kind of has his issues. We don't ever know exactly what they are, but it runs in the family. All the kids are kind of doomed to repeat what their dad is doing. And these 2 boys get sent up to their room, but then they climb down the family tree, kind of a double entendre there, because they're going to be like their dad, getting in trouble. And also there's just a tree outside. They get away. They get in trouble with the police, and the dad goes and picks them up, but knows that they're kind of doomed to follow in his footsteps, which is these generational curses, if you want to call them that. Hopefully I broke all mine in my family, because there was a lot of bad stuff before me. But so far, in my 52 plus years on the earth, I've avoided most of those things. But well done song. All right, we're now in the top 5. And I would say the song that's going to absolutely surprise the most people if you live here in the U.S. But Modern English, I Melt With You, from After the Snow in 1982. Modern English are an English new wave post-punk band formed in 1979 in England. They're best known for this song, Hands Across the Sea, and Ink and Paper. They disbanded in 87, only to reform 2 years later, and disbanded again in 91. They reunited once again in 95 and continued in various different lineups since then. This became the band's most successful single, largely in the US, where it's featured in the film Valley Girl, which I remember that show, Nick Cage, right? There's a time and place. If you watch it now, you'd be like, what is this? But Valley Girl speak, and you'd be like, why did anyone talk that way? But I don't want to go off on that. And it was very popular on MTV. It reached number 7 on Billboard's mainstream rock chart in 1983, and a re-release reached number 76 in 1990 after reaching 78 in 1983, so never had mainstream success. The band's vocalist Robbie Gray described England at the time, of the song's writing to be a bleak place due to an ongoing economic downturn. He said, quote, "There was no money. There'd be no power. You'd be at home with candles. These conditions and his fears of a nuclear war inspired I Melt With You." The song depicts a couple making love while an atomic bomb is dropped. In an interview, he described the song as a love song, but more about the good and bad in people. "The last thing we wanted was to write a song where boy meets girl, they go to the cinema and make love, and that's the end of it." I've never known what the song was about. I know every word to it, but the song is among, now this is what's crazy, right? Remember I told you it reached, 78 and 76 in the US Hot 100, but it's among the top 500 songs ever played on US radio. They received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the BMI Awards in 2017, celebrating 3 million plays of the song. This is one of those rare songs that I could hear it 1,000 times in a row and I would not tire of it. I say this, right? And so I've never sat down and made my list. There can't be 20 songs in my top 10 songs of all time because I'll say this song's got to be one of my top 10 favorites. Someday I might try to figure out my favorite songs of all time. It's kind of hard to do. It's a random list. But I would say this song's in my top 20 and it might be my top 10 favorite songs of all time. There's just something about it, about the arrangement, about the way it takes me back to a time and place and it takes me to a happy place. Although I didn't realize an atomic bomb was being dropped during it. I Melt With You. Now that I know what it's about, when I read the lyrics, I totally get it. Like I said, I don't know what it is about this song. It's the opening little riff, and then the bass line that comes in there. The drumming has an odd, sound to it. It just all works, man. I don't really have a lot else to say about it. I already gushed over it at the start, but a great choice. At number 4, we got Aztec Camera, Somewhere in My Heart from the Love album in 1987. Aztec Camera were a Scottish pop new wave band founded by Roddy Frame, the country singer-songwriter and only consistent member. Established in 1980, they released a total of 6 studio albums. This song was written by Roddy, released as a single in 88. The track peaked at number 3 on the UK singles chart, came a top 40 hit in Australia and Ireland. He revealed in an interview that he considered this an odd song and initially thought it would be at best a B-side. You run into that a lot of times. The songwriter doesn't see the genius in their own art because they probably spend too much time with it. A good song, wonderful arrangement, great horns there throughout, and especially ramping up the last third of the song. From Westwood to Hollywood, the one thing that's understood is that you can't buy time, but you can sell your soul. And the closest thing to heaven is to rock and roll. I thought those were fantastic lines. Good choice for number 3. Next up, we got a band I've never heard of. We got Then Jericho, Big Area from the Big Area album in 1989, their second studio album. Then Jericho are an English rock band. They scored 4 top 40 hits in the UK during the 80s. This song was the lead single in their biggest UK hit, reaching 13 on the UK singles chart. It's featured on the soundtrack to the 1989 film Slipstream. Don't know that movie, but you may. Big Area, Then Jericho, really good song, man. The longer the song went on, the more I liked it. A lot of repeat of the chorus, which really makes it stick in your head. Good vocals, nice little keyboard guitar interplay there. Really good song. All right, at number 2, we got Alphaville, big in Japan from the Forever Young album in 1984, their debut. They're a German synth pop band formed in 82. They gained popularity in the 1980s. It was founded by singers Marion Gold, Bernard Lloyd, and Frank Mertens. Gold remains the only continuous member. They took their name from Jean-Luc Godard's movie of the same name. 8 studio albums, last one being in 2022. This was their debut single. It was a success in many countries, including West Germany. Yeah, West Germany still existed back then. Sweden and Switzerland. It's also the group's only UK top 75 hit, reaching 8 on the UK singles charts. Reached number 1 on the Hot Dance Club play in the US in December of 84. The group employed a Roland System 100 amp to create the bass line. The timing of the song was influenced by the Safety Dance. Oh, that was an awesome song. One-hit wonder here in America, at least. Changing the speed to double time halfway through the song, the melody was developed by all 3 members of the band working in their home studio. Marion Gold developed most of the lyrics while visiting a dentist. The theme was based on 2 friends who were involved in a sordid drug scene of Berlin's zoo station. The refrain, big in Japan, symbolizes the idea of being successful in another world, a fantasy about being drug-free. Gold said, quote, "That line has a certain meaning. It means that if you're a complete loser, you're telling other people, I'm not a loser because in Japan, I'm really big. It's the lie of the loser, and it fitted perfectly into the story of these junkies, which the song is about in a very tragic way." He later explained, "We originally weren't sure whether we should put it on the album because it's a bit autobiographical in that it reflects my time in West Berlin in the late 70s with the drug scene around the train station and the zoo and all the underground things. It has nothing to do with Japan." It's kind of funny. They have a song It was not a hit at all, but now is well known, Forever Young. And that song's got to be, I'll say, in my top 50 favorite songs of all time, but I've never heard anything else from Alphaville. All right, Big in Japan. Really catchy. Obviously, you can see why it was a huge dance hit, you know, just the continuing synth going through there and that just a little different sound effects and the repeating of Big in Japan. All right, so well done. I mean, it's not Forever Young for me, but I've only heard it once. And we are there. We are to number 1 on Richard's top 10 80s hits. It didn't break the U.S. top 40. We got Nick Kershaw, Wouldn't It Be Good, from Human Racing album in 1984, his debut. He's an English singer, songwriter, musician, and record producer. Came to prominence in 1984 as a solo artist. He released 8 singles that entered the top 40 in the UK during the decade. His 62 weeks on the UK singles chart through 84 and 85 beats all other solo artists. Kershaw also penned a number of hits for other artists, including a UK number 1 single in 1991 for Chesney Hawkes, The One and Only. This song was the second single from the album and spent 3 weeks at number 4 on the UK singles chart, successful throughout Europe, as well as a top 10 entry in Canada and Australia. He's also most closely associated with the song in the US, where it narrowly missed the top 40. He performed it at Live Aid in London's Wembley Stadium in July of 1985. According to Kershaw, there were about 20 guitars on this song. There was a bit of trouble in trying to get the other instruments being overdubbed, such as the bass and keyboards, in tune with the guitars. He said the song was about, quote, always wanting it better than everyone else. It's a trap, man. It's a trap. Nick Kershaw, he's got it bad. You don't know how bad I got it. You got it easy. You don't know when you've got it good. It's getting harder. Just keeping life and soul together. I'm sick of fighting, even though I know I should. I don't want to be here no more. That kind of finishes out the song. But a lot of stuff going on here musically, right, in the arrangement. It's definitely 1984. Not in a bad way, but it's definitely 1984, but good offering for number 1 on this list. Now we're going to get to my favorite tracks. Another fantastic list put together by Richard. Honorable mentions: Mental as Anything, Live It Up, Aztec Camera, Somewhere in My Heart, Alphaville, Big in Japan. My faves are going to be Then Jericho, Big Area, and I mean, there's no drama here, Modern English, I Melt With You, but it's also important to point out that's the only song I knew and it ends up being on my faves. Now, obviously, I told you I hold this song in high core, but it also shows you familiarity in music. Repeated listening to good quality music always raises the scale up for you. But I got to know what you think out there. What are your favorite songs off this list? And if you want to do a little research, give me some more suggestions of 80s hits that did not make the top 40 in the US. This list had to be hard to put together. Thank you to Richard for doing that. Give him some love down in the comments. And until next time, guys, I will see you.